So in just moments, we're going to see Joe Montford. But courtesy of the Hall of Fame, if you want to see exactly what it was like to play against Joe Montford, I got to tell you, folks, that it was not a lot of fun.
Joe Montford's CFL career began in 1995 as a linebacker for the U.S. expansion team, the Shreveport Pirates. The Pirates folded after the season, and he was acquired by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. After being moved from his regular position at linebacker with the Ticats, the defensive end led the league in quarterback sacks for 3 straight years. He picked up more than 20 a year from 1998 to 2000 and was one of the most feared pass rushers the CFL has ever known. Montford had a standout season with the Tiger Cats in 1998. He led the CFL with 21 quarterback sacks and 6 forced fumbles, being named a CFL All-Star and winning his first Most Outstanding Defensive Player award. In 1999, Montford came just a half a sack short of tying the single-season record of 26.5, set by fellow Hall of Famer James Parker. Though he didn't break the record, Montford led the league in sacks, recovered 5 fumbles, and had 3 touchdowns. Montford forced a key fumble in the 1999 Grey Cup, which led to a McManus to Flutie touchdown at the end of the first half. The Tiger Cats defeat the Calgary Stampeders 32-21. The year after the Grey Cup victory, Montford led the league in quarterback sacks for the 3rd straight year, as well as setting a new record with 3 consecutive seasons with a minimum 20 sacks. He was also the league leader in forced fumbles that season with 8. After 7 seasons with Hamilton, Montford played 1 season in Toronto and finished his career with the Edmonton Eskimos, taking home his 2nd Grey Cup championship in 2005. The 5-time CFL All-Star finished his career with 135 sacks. He was named one of TSN's top 50 CFL players, won 3 Most Outstanding Defensive Player awards, and will be remembered as one of the most dreaded pass rushers to ever play the game. The Canadian Football Hall of Fame is proud to welcome Joe Montford.
Hello?
I'm looking for the legendary Joe Montford. It's Mike Richards calling from rawmikeRichards.com.
Hey, Mike. How's it going, man? Hey, this is me.
Yeah. Oh, I know it's you, all right. Oh, I know. Being a Ticat fan, I guess I should probably thank a bunch of people, including those from Beaufort, North Carolina, because I got to tell you, watching number 53 collect bodies like Dexter.
You know what? He was one of my favorites.
Joe, I mean,
if not my favorite, Deacon Jones.
And Deacon Jones too. Boy, Deacon was a piece of work. But so were you, my friend. And boy, I'll tell you, looking back on it, for a lot of people obviously seen the highlights. They saw you play. I'm always interested, in how you come to be here. So we talked about, North Carolina. You end up going to South Carolina State, but as a high school guy, as a high school kid, like, where did you think you were going to end up? What was the dream? What was the college? And what was the pro team? What was going to happen for you in your head?
Well, in my head, initially, growing up, there wasn't a lot of football on TV, but the teams that were up there were the Cowboys, Oakland Raiders, the Redskins, and San Francisco, and teams like that. So I became a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I always said I was going to be, up there with the star on my helmet. I didn't, growing up in North Carolina, we watched a lot of basketball. So even though North Carolina wasn't a big football school, just the thought of actually going to North Carolina would have been fabulous as well.
Well, and you make a great point, too, because you grew up in Tobacco Row, especially in that time. I would think almost your first feeling is that either you're going to play for the Tar Heels or you're going to be a smarty pants and play for Duke, or you're going to go to almost anywhere where you can play, because it to that time certainly was the dominant sport of that area.
It was, and then the funny thing is that in my hometown we had a bunch of guys that actually went to North Carolina State, and so we had Von Johnson and all those guys that went off and had NFL careers. So I had a kind of look, but at the same time I wanted to kind of mold my own path. So I didn't necessarily want to go to North Carolina State.
So coming out of university, how much did you know about the Canadian Football League?
Probably zero, next to none. but the thing about it is, I had a desire to. One thing my mom always got, instill in us, even coming from a small town, because a lot of kids didn't go places, but my uncles always encouraged us to go different spots. And my mom would just get in our car, fill the gas tank up, and we would drive, or we'll fly, do something. And so we was always in Maryland or doing stuff. She's like, whatever, son, don't limit yourself. So she's like, travel and see the world. So anytime something came up, she's like, that's the path that God put you in. So for me, I was just waiting for the next path for me to be put on.
Yeah, and that next path, Joe, and so good to talk to you. It's David Bastel here. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey.
That first path in the CFL was with the Shreveport Pirates. And a lot of people will sit there and go, Joe Montford was a Hamilton Ticat. No. It all started in Shreveport, Louisiana. How weird was that, playing in the CFL, but you're American based, so it was even a lot closer to home than you probably thought would have happened.
Yeah, when things didn't work out, my first stop coming out of college was, I thought, being Black College Defensive Player of the Year, I thought the NFL was going to be in my plan. So I did sign with Cleveland. And my good friend Orlando Brown, who's no longer with us, the one got hit in the eye with the bag, was there in Cleveland at the time. And I ended up getting released and not knowing what was going to happen. So I ended up playing a little arena football, and just so happened my coach knew Forrest Gregg, who was the coach down in Shreveport. And it's like, I got a great player that, he'll be good in the system. And that's how I ended up with the Canadian Football League.
And that's quite a name too. I mean, I was sort of stunned. For Canadians, when American teams first come into it, it's something that we never would have imagined in a million years. So when Larry Smith brings them in, and then you see Shreveport, which many people up here, Joe, they wouldn't have known. They would have known where that was, and because it's not the most it's not the most scenic place. I would think that you would be. No.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it was, I realized, now, the reason why some of the American teams couldn't really win, just because the Canadian teams and the players that had the Canadian players, you could see how the Canadian players was invested into the team, and I think that was really a huge difference of them actually really understanding the game and really investing in the game.
Well, after that season, you come up, you get to Hamilton, and then of course that's really where you had made your name. It's not where you finished, but I think I would speak on behalf of Ticat fans. We would think that's where your heart is, because you were the heart and soul of that team. The win in '99. Beating Calgary finally Hamilton beats Calgary. But those were some great teams. You had Danny Mack, you had Darren Flutie, amongst a whole bunch of others. It really was a time of turnaround in Hamilton. And Hamilton is a small town, even though it's a city. And they're you talking about investment. They're emotionally invested in that black and gold. And when you came here, you were part of that family and always will be a part of that family.
Yeah, I mean, I get emotional. I was just speaking with a gentleman here in the restaurant, and I was just speaking about how much Ivor Wynn was a part of the city. I still think back at Ivor Wynn. I get emotional actually talking about it because, that stadium represented. I love the new stadium, but that stadium right there represented the workforce in Hamilton and how people live in the steel mill, and people giving their last just to try to get a glimpse of their Ticats.
And you bring up another point about emotion. Like if I had to make a comparison, so for people understanding, the way I see Hamilton to its fans were the way that I think in Pittsburgh. I think certainly when they were Steel Town, I think it was very similar. And I think for the New Orleans Saints during Katrina, when they looked to the one place they got, I think Joe, it's very similar.
It's definitely very, very similar. And for me, it just reminds me of my hometown. Not a very, very big city. And the city next to us had a lot of, white collar workers. And in my town, we did fishing and shrimping and farming and things of that nature. So, and I saw the struggles of men just trying to put, food on the table for their families and everybody just trying to live their lives. But also they got a professional team here and they want to support them.
Joe, the resume is amazing. A two-time Grey Cup champion, five-time CFL All-Star, five-time CFL East All-Star, of course, Hall of Fame in 2011, three-time Most Outstanding Defensive Player. But, you know, when I think of Joe Montford, and I'm a longtime CFL guy, I'm from Western Canada, Joe, when I think Joe Montford and somebody tells me about Joe Montford, I think about the biggest biceps in the CFL. How you doing right now, Joe? I know you're retired and so forth, but are the biceps still there?
The biceps are there. The biceps will never leave. You know, my dad, God bless him, he's always had big arms, so I kind of just got them from him, and they're there, man. They're not leaving me.
So I remember the big arms, and you know, because I'll put my cards on the table, Joe. I'm a Winnipegger. I'm born and raised there, so I'm a Blue Bomber guy.
Good. Okay, go Milt Stiegel. Okay.
And I know you're good friends with Milt Stiegel because I know the two of you worked out in the off season. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to know was how big were those shoulder pads, Joe? Because you looked like you're a big dude, but those shoulder pads made you look like Megatron.
Well, you know what? There's a history behind those shoulder pads. Back in college, I was paralyzed for about a year.
Okay.
And I thought it was just a stinger, but ended up being paralyzed, kind of like Joe Higgins. But it ended up coming back after a year. So they were more like my Superman pads, my something just to kind of protect me. That, you know, I don't know how much they protected me or how much it was an intimidation factor when people would see it.
Oh, it was big. It was big.
But I kind of traveled with them, almost like I got my wallet, got my keys, got my shoulder pads.
Well, it's funny. You won't remember. I'll remember this because I had actually met you while you were playing there, and we were sitting in some place, and I said, Joe, you know, did the other players, because there's smack talk, there's a lot of talk out there, and I said, because of those enormous guns, I go, you must hear something. And you said to me, you said, well, players come up to me and they say, those arms aren't so big. And you turned to me and said, which means they are.
They are, exactly. I remember saying,
it's amazing. You know, the one thing that I'm really going to be looking forward to on Thursday night, it's not Ivor Wynn. You know, it's been revamped. It's a beautiful facility they have at Tim Hortons Field, but still it's got that similar feel, the way that the stands are.
Yes, it does.
And those people that are coming out, I think this is going to be a very emotional night for you.
It is. It's already. I tell you, last week I had butterflies in my stomach just talking, and you know, my kids never got a chance to see me play. My oldest was probably 3, and my middle child was actually born in Edmonton, but so she didn't get a chance to see, and then my youngest didn't get to see any of it. So just having them. And we just went over the videos last week, and, man, I could get the butterflies. I almost want to put a pair of shoulder pads on if I can go out there and get it done.
Hey, there are a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing that, just so you know. There's a lot of people out there. Boy, I'm so grateful that I had a chance to talk to you today. I know that you're also a very giving guy. You work with kids, too, do you not? Or at least I know you did at one point.
Well, I used to work with kids a lot.
Yeah.
I used to work in a center for abused kids. So, and then I worked at different centers where I go in and speak with kids. So, don't do as much. You know, once you get to kids, man, family life kind of takes over.
Yes, it certainly does. And you know what? The fact you had the time for us today, I'm so thrilled. I'm going to be watching, look, one of my favorite players, but you probably hear that a lot when you come to this area, certainly when you're in Hamilton. And I'm really excited for you, what you're going to experience on Thursday night. It's well-deserved. And thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to you, my friend.
I appreciate it, man. I hope to see you guys out there in the field.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, man. Love you guys.
That is Joe Montford, as you can hear. I mean, you know, you're on the phone. You know, this guy in his day, you know, would have been seeing people. I mean, it's Hamilton, small town. It's like in some ways it's different than the NFL because the towns are smaller and everyone kind of knows who you are. It's closer to like when you play junior hockey or a university, sometimes university town. They all know who you are. I mean, you know, you're not walking down the street, and especially someone like Joe, you probably don't recognize who it is. It's like sort of seeing Phil Heath if he didn't wear such baggy clothes, right? Because he does. He wears baggy clothes. Yeah. And the fact is, can you not just hear that coming through the phone? What a genuine human being that is.
Yeah. What? We just become best friends? Yep.